All right, welcome to our Facebook Live on hormone imbalance. My name is Joanne Doe. I'm a practitioner at Natural Healing Center, and tonight we are going to be talking all about hormone imbalance. So, what it is, what are some common symptoms? There are many, and what might also be underlying causes of that hormone imbalance. Why is it happening in the body to begin with? And what you can do to balance your hormones naturally, and also how we can help. So, before we talk about hormone imbalance, let's first talk about what hormones are. So, hormones are your body's chemical messengers, and so they're responsible for traveling around your body via your bloodstream, and they are basically telling organs and tissues what to do. And by doing that, they are helping to control many of your body's processes, like your metabolism, which is how your body transforms the food you consume into energy, how fast that happens, and also other processes would include like reproduction. So when you have a hormone imbalance, it means that you are producing maybe too little or too much of a particular hormone, maybe more than one. And even small, tiny changes can really have serious effects throughout the whole body. So one way to think of it is, say you are making a cake, and I'm not a baker, so I'm just going to throw out some numbers here, but say you're baking a cake and the recipe calls for a cup of flour, half cup of sugar, 2 eggs, half cup of oil, and let's say, I don't know, you're feeling off that day, or maybe you don't have some measuring cups with you, but you double the flour, or you don't put enough sugar, you're off by an egg or two. What you'll notice is it's going to change the outcome of the cake itself. It's going to affect the final product. So that's the same thing with what's going on with your hormones. Even like a small change in this hormone or that hormone, it's going to have an effect on that final product and your whole body. And you may see some symptoms arise of hormone imbalance. So we're going to talk about, what might be causing you to make too little or too much of a particular hormone. But before we get into that, I'm going to go over some common symptoms. So one that we see quite often is unexplained, and it can be sudden or not, weight gain or weight loss, and it could be very much be the case. It's like no matter what you do, it's just like stubborn. You either like can't lose the weight or you can't put on weight. And say in the past you had done this specific way of eating, that you worked out a certain way and you just were able to drop the pounds when you needed to, but for some reason it's not working for you anymore. And then with the weight gain and trying to gain weight, it doesn't matter how much you eat, how much you work out, you're not really seeing any changes there. Another common symptom is fatigue, really low energy. A lot of clients come to us with hot flashes. They're waking up in the middle of the night, they're sweating, might be at work. Thinning hair, that's another one, thin, brittle hair. Hormone imbalance symptom can also be like mood swings. So maybe one minute you're nice and calm, the next you're really irritable, or maybe you're experiencing some depression, some nervousness, some anxiety. Other symptoms, dry skin, infertility, can affect your digestion and your bowel movements. So maybe it's too many bowel movements, or maybe it's hard to go to the bathroom. Can also affect your urination. Oftentimes we see more frequent urination. Can affect your appetite. So maybe you're having like crazy sugar cravings or hunger cravings, or you're thirsty all the time. Muscle aches, joint pain, tenderness. Your hormones can also affect your heart rate, so you might notice increased or decreased heart rate, and also can regulate your body temperature, so you might notice that you're more sensitive to cold, that you run cold, or maybe the opposite is true, you are sensitive to heat and you run hot. Okay, so we have many clients coming to us experiencing maybe one or a mix of all those different symptoms, and it's pretty amazing the results we see in clients who follow our recommendations to make certain changes to their foods, take supplements, and I'll go over that a little bit, and then care for their scars. And it's all based on how their body tests using nutrition response testing. So by focusing on certain foods and working to reduce the foods that have kept you from feeling well, it does two things. So it really fuels your body with the nutrients and hence the energy it needs to do what it does day in and day out. And it also works to bring down inflammation. And towards the end of this, I'll go over tips to balance hormones naturally. So we'll talk a little bit more about what foods would be good and what foods would be good also to avoid. And then in terms of supplements, what we test for here aren't like the supplements and vitamins that you might get at your grocery store. They're therapeutic level and they're all natural. They're made from whole foods, so your body recognizes what they are and is able to utilize them. The same isn't true for synthetic vitamins. It's like you're consuming like highly concentrated versions of food. So like in this tablet, let's say you have more nutrients in that than you could potentially get a day of that particular nutrient, whatever it is. And that way it really works to bridge any nutritional gap that might be going on quickly. And then I also mentioned, your scars and how that can play a part in your body's healing. Sometimes and oftentimes we see it as a roadblock to healing. So by addressing our scars, it helps to increase the circulation through our body. And scars are important because it means at some point there was damage to nerve tissue, and that can cause dysfunction in the body no matter how old or how new the scar is. And when I talk about scars, I'm referring to tattoos, stitches, stretch marks, burns, cuts, any kind of injuries to the skin. Your skin is your largest organ. I think it's like 80% or more of nerves end in the skin. So you want to make sure that that organ is well taken care of and it's getting what it needs. Okay, so let's talk about causes. So with hormone imbalance, there may be one or multiple causes at play. So first, let's talk about organ dysfunction. There's a number of organs that release hormones in the body. And when we talk about hormones, a lot of times we tend to talk about thyroid health. So your thyroid is responsible for regulating your metabolism, your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion, your body temperature, your mental activity, your skin health, your bone health, fertility, etc. So imagine if your thyroid is producing too little or too much of a specific hormone, and what effect that can have on your body if it's responsible for so many different things. So I talked about it a little bit before. If your thyroid hormones affect your heart rate, you might notice a symptom in the heart rate speeding up or slowing down. Or if it affects your body temperature, that's when you might run too hot or too cold. And imagine if it affects your mental activity, you might experience brain fog or lack of focus. And there's several other organs that release hormones in the body, like your pituitary gland is one of them. It's responsible for releasing growth hormone, also thyroid stimulating hormone. Your adrenal glands, which are responsible for releasing cortisol. Your pancreas actually releases hormones. It releases insulin. And you have your ovaries, if you're a female, that releases estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Those are just a few of several organs that release hormones throughout the body. And so, one thing that you also want to consider is all our organs work together, so they're not separate. And you can kind of imagine it like a web, like a spider web, all these organs working together interconnectedly. So imagine in the middle of the web, say you have your thyroid, and your thyroid's stressed and it's not optimally functioning. It's if you can like imagine it kind of pulling on that web, and like all the organs it's connected to are feeling that stress, and now they're trying to overcompensate, and now instead of one stressed organ you have multiple stressed organs. So the great thing about nutrition response testing is that it allows us to identify all those organs that are stressed. And so, even though maybe you have a number of stressed organs, it doesn't necessarily mean that they all need to be like prioritized. Like, we need to find a way to fix the thyroid and the pancreas and the liver all at once. But what's really great is that there's a way for us to muscle test and see what the priority is in healing. So, say in the case that it's the thyroid that's the priority, we give the thyroid what it needs to rebuild, repair, strengthen, rebalance itself. Then it's kind of like a domino effect, and you have a lot of relief that happens to those organs that it's connected to. So that's one of the good ways to visualize it. Let me know if you have any questions about that in the comments, and if you're here, feel free to say hello. Thank you for joining. So we talked about organ dysfunction as one cause to hormone imbalance. Another one might be nutritional deficiencies. So common nutritional deficiencies when it comes to hormone imbalance would be magnesium, B vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin C, and iodine. Iodine, which is food for the thyroid. Hi, Roxanne. Thank you for joining. I hope you had a good holiday and Happy New Year. And that goes to everyone. um, so what you want to do is eat a balanced diet sufficient in these nutrients, and we can work with you and guide you on making sure you're getting what you need, and if you are deficient in something, working on addressing that. Okay, so organ dysfunction, nutritional deficiencies. It may also be caused by certain stressors. So stressors on the body can include food sensitivities. So some of the most common ones that we check for, cow dairy, corn, soy, sugars, which include like honey, agave, maple, artificial sweeteners, grains like wheat, oats, millet, things like that, rice, nightshades, caffeine. And then it may also, other causes could be immune challenges. So, immune challenges could be bacteria, virus, parasites. Some are small, some are large, and we may get them from air, food, water, pets. Mold, which can be black or green molds if you're in like a wet or humid environment. Could be chemicals like pesticides. It could be like fragrances, like home care products, depending on what you're using, personal care products. Toxins may also be like metals, or stressors can also be metals. So mercury, a lot of times like dental fillings, which can leach, aluminum from pans, foil, deodorant, chlorine from water, radiation sources. So EMFs, which might be coming from our Wi-Fi, cell phone towers, electric cars, GPS, for smartphones. And then that's a lot about physical stress, but also there's like emotional stress too. And that could be from family, work, children, personal stress, whatever it is that's going on, that can have an effect on our health. And then I talked a little bit about scars already and their potential to cause dysfunction in the body. But basically, they're an indication that at some point there was damage to nerve tissue, and that could be blocking the flow of energy through the body. So what can you do to balance your hormones naturally? So make sure you're getting adequate sleep. Go for 8 hours or more a night. You want to create an environment conducive to sleep. So make sure that you're kind of turning off your cell phones, TVs, computers well before bedtime. Hopefully, leave those devices in the other room if you can. Put them on airplane mode just for the EMFs, and make sure your room's nice and dark. And then you also want to focus on your foods. So eating a balanced, whole food rich diet, that you're getting protein at every meal, and it'd be great to get like a lean, high quality protein. If you're having like eggs, pasture raised, if you're having seafood, wild caught, if you're having chicken, organic. And then also you want to be filling your plate with 1/2 minimum or more of veggies. Go for a rainbow of different veggies, especially get your greens in too. And then you also want to be consuming healthy fats like olive oil. I mean, raw olive oil that hasn't been heated, so not the one that you put in the pan, but say like an oil you put on a salad as a dressing. And then salmon is a good one too. Inflammatory foods, you want to avoid those. So I went over what the common ones are. So you have wheat, corn, sugar, soy, dairy. And then a note on sugar in particular, that's the regular sugar that you might think of as like cane sugar, honey, agave, maple, but it's also like refined sugars or refined carbs that you might find in like your breakfast cereals or pastries. Another example of sugar would be alcohol, so working on just being mindful in those areas. And then, the gut is so important when it comes to digestion, making sure you're able to break down your nutrients and absorb them. So what you can do for gut health is eat fermented food, which could be like a sugar-free kombucha, sauerkraut. You could do like a goat kefir or something like that. And then in addition to the fermented foods, which give you a lot of good probiotics, you want to also have like fiber-rich food, which we like call prebiotics, and basically so the probiotics are like the actual like good bacteria themselves, and then the prebiotics are like foods that feed the good bacteria. So you want to make sure you're feeding the good guys. So go for fiber-rich foods, chia seeds, avocado, those are great. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water a day, especially in the morning. That's the best time to drink water. Take an inventory of your home and personal care products. There are some really big endocrine disruptors in this area, especially when it comes to cleaning products like bleach, ammonia, anything that has like a fragrance. That can be quite harmful. So kind of go through and you can choose to either make your own personal care products or cleaning products, or you can choose varieties that are proven to be like non-toxic, and we can kind of guide you through that as well. But that's a big one. Air fresheners, Febreze, I would just throw that out. Engage in moderate exercise, which really just means move your body. So it doesn't have to be crazy. I highly suggest that you do what you like to do. So if you don't like going to the gym, don't do that. If you would prefer to go to a yoga class or a spin class, do that instead. If you like being outside, go for a brisk walk or a light hike, go bicycling. And then ideally, you want to work up to getting 150 minutes a week. And so that breaks down to 30 minutes for 5 days, and you can always work up to that. So if you're not doing anything right now, you don't have to go from 0 to 150. Maybe you start with 30 minutes and then you build up from there. And then another thing you can do to balance hormones is manage your stress levels. One thing I think of when think about managing stress is, practice creating boundaries and saying no, so that you don't like overexert yourself or spread yourself too thin. If someone's asking you to do something and you don't have the time, or with creating boundaries, maybe that's with work, maybe making sure that you're leaving at a certain time so you have the time to do what you need to do. Those are just some examples. If someone asks you to do something, you don't really want to do it, or they ask you to go somewhere you don't really go, then practice saying no. And then mindfulness exercises can also help to manage stress. So some examples would be like yoga or meditation, but it could just mean that you are going for a walk, being present on that walk, and using it as a way to kind of relax and de-stress. All right, so while making these like dietary and lifestyle changes can really help to balance your hormones, it may be the case that it would be in your body's best interest to get some additional support, because maybe of those things that I said in terms of causes, maybe that organ dysfunction has been going on for a long time. Same thing with the nutritional deficiencies, same thing with the causes, like the exposure to chemicals or to metals or whatever immune challenge has been there for a long time. So you have had toenail fungus for years and years, and just, it's never really gone away, or even no matter what you tried. So in that case, while making changes to foods and lifestyle is great, your body might just need a little bit more in order to address that specific stress on the body, that nutritional deficiency, or that organ that's in need of support. And that's where the muscle testing can really help to determine what the causes are, what the stress areas of the body are, and then on top of that, what would work well to bring that back into balance. And oftentimes we work with the whole food supplements, maybe it's herbs, maybe it's stem cells and other natural remedies, but we see a lot of improvement in clients' overall health and a lessening of their symptoms as a result. So if you are wanting to learn a little bit more about that, you can feel free to comment or message me, and I'll definitely share some more information with you. Typically, initial consultation, takes place over 2 days' time. One day is getting to know you, running all the different tests, and then the second day is having you come back, going over all the results and recommendations, which is really a game plan for you moving forward. And if it sounds like a good fit, we'll go ahead and get you started with the foods and the supplements. And if it's not for you, that's okay too. I do want to offer you a special deal though. So typically the cost of those 2 visits for the initial consultation is $299, and if you mention this Facebook Live, then we can offer you $50 off that initial consultation. If you found this information helpful, it would be really wonderful if you shared it to anyone you know that might benefit. A lot of times people think that their symptoms are normal, whether it's, always feeling tired, or lack of focus, or like low libido, and it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way. There's things that we can do to bring their body back into balance, or really what they're doing too, to bring their body back into balance, so that they don't have to live like that, and they can live the way that they want to. So any questions, please share them in the chat, and if you have any other topics that you want to for me to go over in the upcoming Facebook Lives, then feel free to send that over. I believe, if I have the schedule right, next week is cooking tips, like food preparation tips, and then the following one I'll be talking about like